I'm going to tell you something today that can change everything. Not just your body, but how you make decisions, how you show up in your relationships, your business, your purpose. And it all starts with one thing. One commitment. Not a diet, not a workout plan, not another hack. A commitment so powerful, so simple, that once you make it, it eliminates the endless battles in your head, the self-doubt, the procrastination, the stop-start cycle you've lived in for years. I'm talking about a moment where you draw a line in the sand and say, this is who I am now. This is the new standard. And I don't go backwards. That moment can happen today, in this room, right now. Because here's the truth. Your body is the gateway to your mind, your energy, your future. And if you commit to mastering it, everything else gets easier. So I invite you, no, I challenge you to stay with me, because what we're about to unlock, it's not just about fitness, it's about freedom. Let me ask you something real. When was the last time you truly followed through on a promise you made to yourself? Not when you made to your boss, not when you made to your partner or your kids, but to yourself. That's where real transformation begins. Right there, with a decision that you're done negotiating with your own potential. See? Most people live in this exhausting loop of indecision. They say things like, I'll start Monday. I just need more time. I don't feel ready. You ever hear yourself saying that? Of course, we all have. But that inner dialogue, that constant debate, it's killing your progress. It drains your energy. It weakens your identity. And worst of all, it conditions your brain to believe that your word to yourself doesn't matter. But here's the truth. The moment you make a real decision, not a wish, not a preference, a decision, you shut that door. There's no more negotiating. It's just doing. I'm talking about a total shift in your internal standard. A moment where you stop allowing the voice in your head to run the show and you say no more. I decide who I am now. Because the strongest people aren't the ones who never feel resistance. They're the ones who've trained themselves to act in spite of it. They've conditioned themselves to follow through regardless of how they feel. And you can do the same. But it starts with this. You make a commitment that is non-negotiable. You don't dabble. You commit. That means you stop treating your goals like they're optional. That means when your alarm goes off, you get up. When your workout is on the calendar, you show up. When it's time to fuel your body, you don't ask yourself if you feel like it. You've already decided. You've already chosen who you are. You want to know the most powerful feeling in the world, the confidence that comes from keeping promises to yourself? It rewires your brain. It tells your nervous system, I'm the kind of person who follows through. And once that belief is installed, watch what happens. You stop hesitating, you start making decisions faster, you stop spinning in anxiety, and you start taking aligned action. And this doesn't just change your body, it changes how you lead, how you parent, how you love, how you work. Because the way you do anything is the way you do everything. If you can be disciplined in the small, quiet moments when no one's watching, you'll become unshakable when the pressure is on. But if you keep allowing yourself to negotiate, to delay, to justify, then every time you do that, you reinforce a pattern of weakness. And you start living based on your feelings, not your future. You've got to make a decision that your commitment is final, that this version of you, the one who's tired, scattered, inconsistent, is done. You bury it. You draw that line in the sand and you say, from now on, my word to myself is law. Because when that commitment is locked in, everything else becomes easier. The need for motivation disappears. You don't need willpower when identity is driving your choices. That's when momentum kicks in. That's when you start showing up differently, not just in the gym, but in every room you walk into. And if you'll make that one shift today, if you'll stop negotiating with your own greatness, everything in your life will begin to move. It's the power of a decision. Your body is not just a vehicle. It's not just muscle, bone, or fat. Your body is your gateway to power. It's your access point to energy, emotion, and every decision you make. If you want to change your life, if you want to take control of your mind, your outcomes, your future, it starts with mastering your physiology. People try to think their way out of problems. They try to use willpower to fight through depression, anxiety, uncertainty. They try to make big decisions from a place of fatigue and frustration. Let me tell you, if your body is out of alignment, your mind will follow it right into the ditch. You can't create clarity from chaos. You can't lead from a body that's breaking down. You've got to flip the switch by shifting your state first. Motion is the fastest way to change emotion. If you sit in low energy, you think low quality thoughts. If your posture is collapsed, if your breath is shallow, if your blood isn't flowing, you're not going to feel confident, focused, or decisive. But when you stand up tall, when you move with intention, when you breathe deeply, when you train with intensity, you awaken something primal inside you. You send a message to your brain that says, we're alive, we're in control, let's go. You don't need to be a fitness model. This isn't about perfection, it's about activation. This is about using your body as a tool to reclaim your mind. Because the truth is, most people aren't lazy, they're just tired. They're inflamed, they're weighed down by years of stress, poor sleep, junk food, emotional heaviness. And then they wonder why they can't get clear, why they keep second guessing, why they feel stuck. You can't think your way into freedom, you move your way into it. You fuel your body with what it needs, not what's convenient. You hydrate, you stretch, you train, you recover. You treat your body like it's the source of your leadership, because it is. When your energy is high, your standards go up. You're less reactive, you're more present. You make decisions based on your vision, not your emotion. That's what separates people who rise from those who run in circles. They've learned how to flip the switch inside themselves on demand. That's not magic, that's practice, that's commitment. When you take charge of your body, you begin to notice something incredible. You stop getting stuck in loops of indecision. You stop drowning in overthinking. Why? Because you're not operating from depletion anymore. You've got fuel in the tank, you've got clarity in your bloodstream, you've got momentum, and the people around you will feel it. Your partner will feel it, your team will feel it, your kids will feel it. Because energy is contagious. You can't fake vitality. You can't fake presence. When you walk into a room with certainty in your body, people lean in. They feel your strength, they trust your direction, and more importantly, you trust yourself. That's why mastering your physiology is not optional. It's not some side goal. It's foundational. You want to make better decisions? You want to stop spinning in fear? You want to feel like you're in charge again? Then start with the one thing you can control in any moment, your physical state. Because when your body leads, your life follows. Real change doesn't last when it's built on willpower. Willpower burns out. It fades when you're tired, when life gets loud, when stress piles on. What creates lasting transformation, what locks it in, is when your actions aren't just things you do anymore. They become part of who you are. That's the shift. That's the secret. You've got to align your habits with your identity. Too many people walk around with goals that contradict the story they tell themselves. They say, I want to get in shape, but deep down they still see themselves as someone who's inconsistent. They say, I want to wake up early and train, but their inner voice says, you're not really a morning person. So every day becomes a battle. Every action feels like resistance because it's working against an identity that hasn't been upgraded. But when you make the decision to become the kind of person who follows through, everything starts to change. You stop trying to act healthy, you are healthy. You stop forcing yourself to show up, you just do because it's what someone like you does. This is the power of identity. It's the thermostat that controls every action, every choice, every standard you hold. You can set goals all day long, but if your identity is still stuck in the past, you'll sabotage yourself every time. So the work is not just in the behavior, it's in the belief. Who do you believe you are? And I'm not talking about lying to yourself. I'm talking about installing a new standard through repetition, through action, through commitment. You don't have to be perfect. You just need enough proof. Proof that you're someone who honors the commitment. You show up when it's hard. You eat clean when no one's watching. You train even when it's cold or you're tired or the excuses start whispering. And every time you do that, you carve a new groove in your nervous system. You reinforce the truth. This is who I am now. And here's the beautiful part. Once it becomes identity, it becomes effortless. You don't think about brushing your teeth in the morning. You just do it. Why? Because it's who you are. That's where you want to live. In that place where the habits that once took so much effort now flow without resistance because they match your self-picture. You ever see someone who just seems locked in? They don't talk about getting motivated. They don't make drama out of the process. They just live it. That's someone whose identity is aligned with their goals. Their choices are automatic because their vision of themselves demands it. You can get there too. It starts with a decision. Then it takes repetition. And most importantly, it requires that you stop arguing for your limitations. Stop telling the old story. Stop saying, I've never been disciplined, or I always quit. That version of you doesn't exist anymore. Not if you decide it's over. You've got to speak a new story, live it, breathe it, and then watch as the habits follow. So from this point forward, I want you to stop trying to force change and start embodying it. If your goal is to transform your body, become the person who moves daily, who eats with intention, who values rest, who owns their schedule like a leader. If your goal is to make better decisions, start believing you're someone who sees clearly, who acts quickly, who doesn't hesitate when the path is right. Because when your habits are built from identity, consistency becomes your default. And that's when you become unstoppable. Momentum is one of the most powerful forces in your life. And most people don't even realize they're either using it or being used by it. You're never really standing still. You're either building momentum that's carrying you forward, or you're slipping into patterns that pull you backward. The beautiful thing is you get to choose which one you ride. That one commitment we've been talking about. That one decision to stop negotiating with yourself, to master your physiology, to align your habits with who you really are, that commitment doesn't just change you in isolation. It becomes the spark that sets everything else in motion. Because the truth is, when you gain momentum in one area, it bleeds into everything. You get your body moving, you feel stronger. You feel stronger, you start thinking clearer. You think clearer, and suddenly, the decisions that used to paralyze you become obvious. The confidence that used to feel forced becomes natural. See, the hardest part isn't doing the work. The hardest part is starting. The hardest part is showing up on day one when nobody's cheering, when the old story is still screaming in your head, when the results aren't there yet. But if you push through that, if you lean in and build even a little traction, momentum takes over, and what felt hard starts to feel automatic. What used to take effort starts to feel like you. That's why one change, one commitment can create a cascade. You get disciplined in your workouts, and you start making better choices with food. You start eating better, and suddenly you're sleeping deeper. You're sleeping better, and now your mind is clear at work. Your relationships shift because you're no longer be active. You're grounded, focused, present, all because you created momentum in one area and it rippled into everything else. Most people try to fix everything at once. They get overwhelmed, they stall. But transformation doesn't happen in one giant leap. It happens through compound clarity. Every small decision you make in alignment with your commitment builds trust in yourself. And that trust is what accelerates the momentum. You stop second guessing. You start deciding faster, and when you decide faster, you stop leaking energy into doubt. You conserve that energy and reinvest it into growth, into movement, into life. That's why this one commitment matters so much, because when you get your body into motion, when you take control of what you can control, it creates certainty, and certainty is a foundation. It's And what gives you the strength to face uncertainty in your business, in your finances, in your relationships without crumbling? When your core is strong, the chaos can't shake you. The truth is, momentum doesn't ask for perfection. It asks for consistency. You don't need to be intense all the time. You just need to keep going. You need to build enough forward motion that even when you have an off day, and you will, that momentum carries you through. You don't fall back to zero. You rebound because there's a baseline now, a rhythm, a pulse that doesn't disappear just because you stumble. And here's what's incredible. When you build this kind of momentum, life becomes simpler. You start to make decisions from a place of power, not pressure. You don't overthink every step because your body, your habits, your identity are aligned. You're no longer starting from scratch every day. You're starting from strength. And when you operate from strength, everything in life feels lighter. Not because life got easier, but because you got stronger.